right now. And no doubt this is the map President Trump would like to see come about. Greenland has a population of 56,000, but it's the 12th largest territory in the world by land mass, although flat maps of the globe do make it look even bigger. And he says he needs Greenland for national security reasons. And since the 1950s, the US has had a military base on Greenland, strategically important, of course, because of its location between the US and its old foe, Russia. Crucially, it's also home to some of the world's largest reserves of rare earth minerals outside of China, vital for the tech, EV, and defense industries where the US wants global dominance. 300 years ago, the Danes fancied Greenland's natural resources too and went looking for useful minerals as well, making it a Danish colony in 1721. So Greenland has been Danish longer than the United States has even existed. But the relationship has evolved. Greenland voted for self-government in 2008, although with foreign policy and defense still controlled by Denmark. So it is Danish sovereign territory. What about NATO then? Denmark is in NATO, so is the US. And Article 5 of NATO means an attack on one is supposed to be treated as an attack on all. But when the aggressor is the dominant member of NATO itself, well, the Danish Prime Minister makes the point that NATO would probably fall apart. And has anyone actually asked the people of Greenland what they want? 93% of Greenlanders voted for independence parties in March elections, the winning party favouring a more gradual than rapid journey.
And a coup could take place there at any time. At number 1 is Greenland. Trump has said that Greenland is currently crowded with Russian and Chinese commercial ships, which he considers a major threat to U.S. security. It should be noted that this region is rich in rare minerals that are used in mobile phones, electric vehicles, and military equipment. Trump's attention is now focused on these very resources. At number 2 is Colombia. Colombia also has large reserves of oil, gold, and silver. And Trump's greed has reportedly grown to the extent that he has accused the country's president of involvement in drug trafficking. He has warned the Colombian president to be prepared for consequences. At number 3 is Iran. Iran is currently witnessing intense protests due to inflation. Trump has claimed that Iran is firing on its own civilians and has warned that if this continues, the United States will launch a very severe attack on Iran. At number 4 is Mexico. Trump has accused Mexico of being the main route through which drugs and illegal migrants enter the United States, and has said that strict action must be taken against it as well. At number 5 is Cuba. Trump has said that Cuba is a close ally of Venezuela and that there is no need to attack it directly because it is already on the verge of collapse. And it was Cuban security personnel who were deployed to protect Nicolas Maduro, and they were killed at the hands of U.S. Delta Force. In the past, governments were overthrown secretly, but now Trump has openly resorted to issuing threats. These are the countries that are currently on Trump's hit list, and a coup could take place there at any time. At number 1 is Greenland. Trump has said that Greenland is currently crowded with Russian and Chinese commercial ships, which he can...
I didn't know any of that, so I delved in to try to better understand how he rose to power, and, most importantly, why there are so many products with his name and face on them.
It is not a toupee, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Will you please inform the public?
Donald Trump was born in Queens, New York, a river away from the gleaming skyline of Manhattan. He was a middle child of 5 kids, the son of an immigrant mother from Scotland who ran the Trump home and who was known for her charitable work in the community. But in Trump's telling, his father was his greatest influence.
My father built low and moderate income housing in Brooklyn and Queens.
His dad made a big fortune taking advantage of post-World War II government programs that funded affordable housing complexes during New York's rapid growth. By all accounts, Fred Trump was an obsessively hard worker, saying that he was successful because he could, quote, squeeze 9 days of work into a 7-day work week. Growing up, young Donald was the rich kid on the block. But even still, his hardworking father forced him to have a newspaper delivery route to teach him hard work. Though apparently when it rained, his dad would drive him around on his newspaper route in his Cadillac. Okay. Fred Trump focused on teaching his son the ways of the real estate business, taking young Donald to construction sites from a very young age. He instilled in his son a deep drive to win at anything you do, to be the winner. He would tell Donald that he was raising him to be a king, and that he must become a killer at anything he did. He was tough on Donald, because he wanted him to be a winner. At school, Donald Trump was, in his own words, aggressive. His music teacher, who died in 2015, once said that, quote, "There are certain children who need attention all of the time." He was one of those. And even punching that music teacher in the face, apparently giving him a black eye, because, quote, "I didn't think he knew anything about music." I mean, he was like in elementary school. But it does show you some of this personality that starts to shape up from a young age. Trump says in his book that he focused on creating mischief because for some reason, quote, "I liked to stir things up. I liked to test people." It wasn't malicious, it was just aggressive. Trump's father, Fred, obsessed with hard work and discipline, sent Donald to military boarding school to live full-time when he was just 13 years old. And this is where Donald Trump really starts to thrive.
It was a good education. It was a good training. It was a good training. I enjoyed it.
From my reading, this military academy was pretty intense. It was a place where, quote, "physical brutality and verbal abuse were tolerated and encouraged, both in hazing new students and physical disciplining from teachers." Trump actually thrived on this kind of intense structure. It helped fire up his competitive nature, and soon he would be getting good grades and winning medals for things like having the cleanest room, or the shiniest shoes, or the best made bed, all while going around telling fellow students that, quote, "I'm going to be famous someday."
I was a great baseball player.
What position?
First base, catcher, first base.
Trump was super into baseball. His baseball coach recounts that, quote, "Donald always had to be number one in everything. He would do anything to win, and he wanted people to know that he was first." So teenage Donald Trump spends the school year thriving at military academy, eventually rising to the rank of captain over the rest of the cadets, and then spending summers back in Queens working with his dad, learning the ways of the real estate business. Both of these experiences are very formative and lay the foundation of who he will become and what he will do in his future. That future continues when he goes off to college.
I went to an Ivy League school. I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words.
Trump gets into college, and he still doesn't know exactly what direction he's going to take. He considers going to film school in LA to become a filmmaker.
My other fantasy as I got older was to do movies. I wanted to be a movie maker.
Man, what an alternative world that would be. Donald Trump, the movie director.
Down the hall and to the left.
Thanks.
I like keeping a low profile.
If only. But ultimately, he decided to follow his father's path. He studies economics and business, and this is like during the 70s. There's a war going on in Vietnam. Young men are being recruited, but Trump qualifies for an educational deferment, meaning he gets out of the draft 4 times because he's going to college. Once he got out of school, he would have been eligible for the draft, but he qualified once again for a deferral because of a problem with his heel bone. Though there is some controversy around this, because the doctors who wrote Trump's deferral recommendation both lived and or worked in buildings owned by Fred Trump, Donald Trump's dad. And there's some speculation as to whether or not he actually did have a heel spur, or whether or not these doctors were doing Donald Trump's dad a favor by making it so his son wouldn't be sent off to war. Either way, he didn't go to war, and instead starts working for his dad's thriving real estate business, building lower and middle income apartment buildings in Brooklyn and Queens. And then there's this moment in 1964 that shows us another important part of his personality. There was this huge bridge in New York that had just been completed. It was a massive feat of engineering, connected Brooklyn to like Staten Island or something. Fred Trump was invited to the opening ceremony of this bridge, and he invited his son Donald to be present. Donald sat there in the crowd and noticed that during this celebration of the bridge, the guy who actually designed the bridge was there, but he was just off in the corner. Quote, "No one even mentioned his name," recalls Donald. He goes on to say, quote, "I realized then and there